My fiancé fell in love with the nanny's daughter. He left me all alone at the wedding to cheer up his sweetheart. I stopped him and said, "Why upset grandmother and father just for a canary?" That night, the girl jumped from the top floor wearing a wedding dress. 10 years later, he took over my family's business, killed my parents, and just sent me to a mental hospital with a piece of paper. This is what you guys got coming for Sarah. After being reborn, I watched Victor get together with the nanny's daughter in front of everyone, and a smile crept across my face as I watched. Congratulations to Victor for finding the one who was meant to be with him. Since my parents died 3 years ago, Victor didn't even bother pretending anymore. Every day, he brought around different women in front of me. I cried, made a scene, begged him to let me go. But he refused. Then, he took the diagnosis and locked me in a mental hospital. I just can't figure it out. We've been sweethearts since we were kids. And my father raised him like his own son, and my mother doted on him even more than me. But he conspired with others to frame my parents, causing my father's death from a stroke. 10 years of friendship, even a dog would have grown to stick by you, but Victor is a cold-blooded wolf. I asked him the reason. He sneered, "Eva, this is what you guys got coming for Sarah." Sarah? A gorgeous face popped into my mind. So that's how it is. No wonder all Victor's lovers looked like the same carbon copies. No wonder Victor disappeared on the same day every year. No wonder Victor called out Sarah when he was drunk. No wonder his old house bore the verse, "Drinking alone under the moon, missing the beauty, silver light reflecting the sky and water. Victor, you really have some tricks." I laughed until I started coughing, but my vision darkening in waves. 3 years of suffering had drained my body. There was a metallic sweetness filled my mouth, but the pain faded away. In a daze, I saw Mom and Dad waving, calling me home with them. I really wanted to go home. What's Victor up to? Gone missing at such a crucial moment. Someone beside me complained. I turned and almost burst into tears. It was my mother, my living mother, thank heavens at last. I'd returned to the day before the wedding. Mother's face was still unlined, father had just secured a major deal, the Eva group was thriving, and I hadn't married Victor yet. Everything is still in time to act. Eva, want to give Victor a call? Father approached me, whispering in my ear with a frown. I nodded and pretended to be anxious as I scrolled through my phone. I didn't want to call at all, I knew exactly where Victor was. He was comforting his little lover into happiness. Tomorrow is the wedding, Eva. Tell Victor to mind his manners. I will. I answered with a smile. Sorry, Father, I won't. I'll give Victor a special gift at the wedding. Victor and I were childhood sweethearts. Before Sarah appeared, we'd shared a good time together. He took me to skip school to go skiing, and we chased pigeons along the lakeside causeway. I didn't expect us to know each other deeply or stay together, just mutual respect. That's exactly what I hoped for. I thought he felt the same about me. But on our wedding day, he was going to leave me alone. Because his dear sister Sarah was threatening suicide. A servant's daughter, yet calling herself sister. In my past life, I stopped him. Though my heart ached, I knew this day would come. I stopped him not out of lingering affection, but to avoid embarrassing the family. I said, give our Eva family the dignity it deserves. If you leave, what of grandmother and father? Victor was convinced by me. I turned and instructed the butler to deploy more staff to ensure Miss Sarah is stopped. With my cover, the wedding took place smoothly. But unexpectedly, on that day, Sarah jumped from a high-rise in a wedding dress. Victor's hatred for me grew deeply because of this. Recalling the past, I suddenly shuddered. No, this time, I definitely won't repeat history. Not only would I not stop it, I'd fan the flames. I authoritatively called the butler. Please deliver the invitation and gifts to Miss Sarah. The butler hesitated, as if holding back his words. I smiled and said, trust me, Gabriel. I won't do anything stupid. I just wanted to call off the engagement. On wedding day. Victor kept taking calls, restless and uneasy. I watched his act, knowing full well what was going on. Eva, Sarah, I cut him off immediately. Go. I'll cover for you. He clasped my hand gratefully and said, Eva, you're so kind. I forced a smile, but wiped my hands with a handkerchief after he left. The groom's prolonged absence at the wedding sparked whispers among the guests. Father kept storming over, what's wrong with Victor? Call him a few more times. Still no news? I looked anxious and said, Victor's at the office, something urgent. He'll be here soon. Father's face darkened with rage. Utterly useless. During this period, my parents were quite dissatisfied with Victor. If it weren't for the sake of the Ethan family's standing, I glanced at Ethan's family. The old lady of the Ethan family looked displeased. The younger generation of Ethans whispered among themselves. The Ethan family was Victor's maternal relatives. Victor's mother passed away at a young age. And Victor's father tragically lost his life in a plane crash 5 years ago. If without the support of Grandma Ethan from the Ethan family, the Victor family has long since collapsed. Even my engagement to Victor was tied to Ethan Group. The old lady of the Ethan family adored me. She said I resembled her deceased daughter. At the betrothal, the old lady slipped her family heirloom bracelet onto my wrist. And whispered in my ear, good girl, Grandma has some savings, all for you. Don't tell anyone. I was startled, and quickly shook my head at once. The old lady gripped my hand tightly and said, don't refusal. My heart ached with sadness. Forgive me, Grandma of the Ethan family and my father. Calculating that the time was just about right, I whispered to my father, since we're waiting anyway, why not play the wedding VCR first? My father nodded. I called over a staff member and handed him a USB drive with the files. This USB drive was specially made by me, containing only one video labeled wedding. I stepped aside and waited for the good show to begin. The lights dimmed, the giant screen rose, and the surroundings fell silent. The MC's affectionate voice rang out, dear guests, welcome to the wedding of Mr. Victor and Miss Eva. They have walked hand in hand through their youthful years, facing life's storms together. Let's enjoy their journey of love together. Please watch the big screen. The applause just died down. The auditorium echoed with unbearable moans. 2 figures intertwined on the big screen. The female voice was calling, Brother Victor. The man replied, Sarah. Dear Brother Victor. Sarah, my Sarah, I love you. The hall was utterly silent. Someone let out a scream, no idea who. The entire hall erupted in an uproar. My father shouted, turn on the lights. Turn off the screen now. Shut it down right away. Several different voices rose. Figures moved to and fro. It was chaotic and noisy all around. How could this happen? Since when does Victor have a sister? Isn't that the recent internet celebrity? Poor Eva, listening to the nearby whispers, the corners of my mouth curled up slightly. The lights came on. The crowd gradually settled into tranquility. I tugged at my hair and wiped my face to make myself look more haggard. Eva, my Eva. My mother clutched my hand tightly with a pained expression. My father's face turned livid. Where's Victor? Go find him right now. The MC hurriedly stepped in to smooth things over. Apologies, there was a technical issue just now. Please bear with us, everyone. The guests' eyes flickered at each other. Just then, a voice announced, the groom is here. Welcome, Mr. Victor. The hall fell silent. Victor's face was pale. Sorry, I'm late, urgent matters came up at the company. The crowd cast strange glances at him. Victor wiped the sweat from his face and forced a stiff smile by pulling at the corners of his mouth. The Ethan family moved fast. I wanted people to talk about it a bit longer. I put on a smile and walked toward Victor. The councilman and the priest, having seen many grand occasions, looked at us with loving expressions. As if we were heaven's couple. Victor took my hand, his eyes flickering. I'm sorry, Eva, for keeping you waiting so long. I smiled. No, I wasn't waiting for you. I was waiting for Sarah. The invitations have been sent, don't let me down. The guests tacitly ignored the earlier incident and looked at us with fake smiles, waiting for the priest to read out the vows. The vows were long, I deliberately chose them. The whole process was so dull. I kept looking back, waiting for the drama to unfold. The vows were gradually drawing to an end. Mr. Victor, do you take Ms. Eva to be your wife, to stand by each other through wealth and poverty, until the end of your lives? I do. I frowned. Why hasn't Sarah come yet? Then, Ms. Eva, would you like to— No, a shrill cry echoed from afar, Brother Victor, how could you marry someone else? I smiled and exhaled in relief. Finally, here. Sarah was wearing an identical wedding dress to mine. She stood in the center of the hall, looking sad and forlorn. She was like a lotus emerging from water, too weak to stand straight in the wind. Victor looked pitying. Sarah, why are you here? My father's hand trembled as he pointed at Sarah, who let her in. Get her out. Don't. Victor shouted. Don't hurt Sarah. My father leaned back in fury. Whispers rose all around. The security guards hesitated, unsure whether to take action, looking around in confusion. I quietly asked a waitress to bring a glass of wine and spilled it on the floor near Sarah. Sarah cried out, Brother, why are you marrying another woman? I can't live without you. Brother, I can't live without you. I am also carrying your child. Victor's face twisted in pain. Sarah shouted at me, her voice breaking, Miss Eva, please don't take my brother away, okay? Please, I beg you, don't separate me and my brother. The old lady of the Ethan family clutched her chest. Get someone to take her down, now. The Ethan family bodyguard stepped forward. No, don't do it. Sarah panicked and ran towards Victor. She slipped on the water spilled by the waitress and fell to the ground. I looked at the red stain on her white wedding gown and gasped, Careful, there's blood. Victor's heart and voice shattered, Sarah. Sarah sobbed desperately, Don't touch me, my baby. I'm bleeding, what do I do? Brother, help. Sarah. Victor lunged forward recklessly, pushed away the bodyguards, and held Sarah in his arms, tears streaming. Sarah, don't be afraid, I'll take you away. Stop him for me, the old lady of the Ethan family commanded. Victor swept Sarah into his arms, gazing at her with devotion, and walked forward without looking back. Grandmother, please don't force me. The bodyguards dared not hurt the young master. They could only watch helplessly as Victor left. I remained silent, not a word spoken. The guests exchanged startled glances. My father was panting, my grandmother was shivering, and my mother was weeping. Victor, oh Victor, you've hurt the family who truly cared about you for Sarah's sake. I wonder, when you finally realize Sarah isn't the person you imagined, will you regret it? The wedding was called off. My father seemed to grow 10 years older all of a sudden. I felt upset. But the one who would be suffering even more is Victor. The story between him and Sarah has been spun into various versions, becoming the talk of the town. It's not unusual for a young man from an aristocratic family to keep a mistress, but for the mistress to crash the wedding is a rare spectacle. At dawn, the old lady of the Ethan family brought Victor to apologize to me. I couldn't decline. My father pointed his finger at him. Do you truly want to call off the engagement? Victor knelt on the ground, kowtowing, too afraid to speak. The old lady of the Ethan family smiled apologetically. Our Ethan family absolutely does not harbor such an intention. Victor looked remorseful. Eva, it's my fault. Please forgive me? I lost my mind, I'll never do it again. So truly heartfelt. I almost threw up. I pretended to be heartbroken. Victor, I believe you, but yesterday, in front of my parents, relatives, and friends, how am I supposed to explain this to them? The grandmother of the Ethan family quickly smoothed things over. The young man is reckless. It's just a trivial matter. Our Ethan family won't let him act recklessly. I couldn't refuse too harshly. I choked back tears and said, but what mistress would dare to disrupt a wedding? I think this Miss Sarah wants to be the lady of the house. My father looked thoughtful, indeed. If the Ethan family is sincere, they should send her away. Victor's expression darkened. Impossible. Eva, is this your generosity? Picking on a child? The grandmother of the Ethan family frowned and interrupted. Let's just send her away. Grandmother, Victor shouted anxiously. Don't interrupt, the Ethan family matriarch scolded him. I've decided. Victor shot me a glare. The corners of my lips lifted slightly. In this matter, the Ethan family matriarch really can't make the decision. I called my bestie right away. Her family is in the business of managing influencers and has close ties with the media. What's wrong? Still heartbroken and need a drink with me? Victor and Sarah's scandal has caused a great stir in the city. It's no surprise she knew about it. I smiled, no broken heart, and no drinking. My best friend was puzzled. I don't want to marry Victor anymore. I took a breath deeply and pleaded, Lily, help me. Perhaps my engagement to Victor was too deeply ingrained, as Lily took a long time to process it. I looked dead serious, no joke. Lily gazed at me deeply. What do you need me to do? At the right time, make it headline news. The Ethan family will deeply resent you. They won't know it was me. My best friend looked intrigued. It's actually very simple. The person who's most anxious about the matter is not me. The Ethan family doesn't care about a mistress. When they said they'd send her away, they meant it. How could Sarah be willing to accept it? Moreover, Victor loves Sarah deeply. How could he bear to be separated from her? I once asked Victor why he loved Sarah in particular. Thus he answered this: her heart is most pure. She loves me with her life and blood, a devotion beyond measure. You don't understand, Eva. I want a love without weighing gains and losses, a love that's one of a kind. Someone like you will never get it. I truly don't get it. My father taught me to think 3 steps ahead with each step, and that things will work out if taken slowly for the best outcome. I would never throw my life away for anyone, nor would I use it as leverage. The love I've learned is tolerance and understanding, not possession or hurt. If Victor thinks that's what love is, that's just fine. I'll let the lovers have their happy ending. Before long, a video began viraling on the internet. It immediately trended as a topic. Although it was quickly removed, some still noticed the female lead was the minor influencer Sarah, and the male lead was none other than the young master of the Victor family. The comments were a barrage of unspeakably vile remarks. That same day, Sarah's livestream was shut down. And her account was also cancelled. The Ethan family took swift action. Sarah had no choice but to take a desperate gamble. Sure enough, it wasn't long before rumors spread that Victor was kneeling at the gate of the Ethan family's ancestral home, pleading on Sarah's behalf. The star-crossed lovers embraced and wept bitterly before the crowd, infuriating Grandma Ethan, who cursed them as idiots. A few days later, Sarah was kneeling at my doorstep. Please, Miss Eva, you have everything while I only have my brother. I beg you, please return my brother to me. Miss Eva, I'll kowtow to you. Bang. 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 I sat in the house sipping tea. My mother was so angry that she suddenly wept. My poor Eva has such a tough life. Must you really marry into the Ethan family? My father's expression darkened as he sighed. Our families have been intertwined in business and shared interests for years. Calling off the engagement would not be a simple matter. I patted my mother's hand. No rush, let them cause trouble, the bigger, the better. What about her outside? Let her cry her heart out. Sarah's miserable state drew a crowd of murmuring onlookers. What's going on here? I heard this girl and the young master of the Victor family were lovers, but they were torn apart by force. How pitiful. Her forehead's bleeding from kowtowing. I couldn't help laughing. Wait, there's something even worse to come. I deliberately suggested sending Sarah away. I'm not afraid of her making a scene, just afraid she won't. After seeing Sarah kneel long enough, I had the butler ask Victor for a call. Victor rushed over in no time, holding Sarah tenderly and cursing me for my cruelty. Is this how your Eva family bullies a helpless woman? I'd never marry a venomous viper of a woman like you. Don't think you can use Grandma to pressure me. Annoyed by his words, I had a maid dump a basin of water on them. Eva! Victor let out a piercing shriek. Before he could finish, bodyguards blocked them and ushered him and Sarah out. From now on, don't let in any riffraff. After thinking for a while, I called Ethan. As soon as the call was picked up, a man's lazy chuckle came through. Finally willing to talk to me? Ever since the wedding, Ethan had been seeking chances to talk to me, whether intentionally or not. I knew he might have suspicions, but so what? He didn't have any evidence. I arranged to meet Ethan at the tea house, private, quiet, and less likely to cause an argument. Ethan wasn't overly polite when he saw me. Miss Eva, it seems you have a grudge against Victor. Ethan hit the point precisely. I smiled, not really. I just don't want to be entangled anymore. Ethan was baffled. All this over a woman? I shook my head. Sarah is more than just a woman. So you're using a method that kills 800 enemies at the cost of 1,000 of your own? I neither confirmed nor denied it. He continued, the wrong VCR could be a coincidence, but for Sarah to swagger into the hall so boldly, without you turning a blind eye, I don't believe she could have pulled it off. It seems Miss Eva would rather sacrifice her reputation than call off the engagement. I kept silent. How could I explain it to Ethan? Those days and nights of betrayal, abandonment, and torment from my past life, the nightmare-like past, haven't happened yet. But to me, they were all real. In the dead of night's dreams, I've screamed and cried countless times. I wish nothing more than to send Victor and Sarah straight to hell. But how could I tell Ethan this? Ethan was silent for a long moment. My mother likes you very much. If you refuse to marry Victor, she'll be heartbroken. I looked at the man before me, calm and gentle, yet with a subtle aloofness. It was evident he came from a well-bred family. What a pity, I shook my head. Victor doesn't have the slightest bit of the Ethan group's integrity. Ethan smiled. Since Miss Eva doesn't want to, the Ethan family won't force you, but, he gave me a deep look, I wonder if Miss Eva would consider me? I was startled and knocked over my teacup. I was genuinely quite taken aback. In my past life, I'd had little interaction with this young uncle. I only heard that he eventually died alone from illness, and the Ethan group's assets fell into Victor's hands. It seems we weren't the only one Victor took revenge on. Thinking of this, I gave him a sympathetic look. Ethan was baffled by my gaze and rubbed his nose. Am I being disliked by Miss Eva? I blushed a little. Uncle is undoubtedly an exceptional person. Then why does Miss Eva still call me uncle? Does Miss Eva still have any concerns? Do you feel Ethan is too old? I blushed, flustered and unsure how to respond. Ethan didn't press me further. Then he changed the topic. Whether the engagement continues or not, the Ethan family will always stand behind you. You can rest assured. Always behind me? Sincere, or just polite words? I studied him in confusion. His eyes were earnest. If Miss Eva needs anything, I'll do everything in my power to help. Then he lowered his head, gave a light cough and said, it's also my mother's wish. My heart fills with warmth. He gave me a deep look. I hope Miss Eva will seriously consider my proposal. Before leaving, he gave me a bracelet, my aunt's keepsake. My aunt was a very nice person, but sadly, she spent her life trapped in love. I wish Miss Eva could break free from the sea of love and enjoy a carefree life. I sighed. I deeply appreciated Ethan's gentlemanly demeanor, but my heart is too tangled now to accept another relationship. It's not that I hold hatred for Victor because I can't let go of him. I'm terrified of repeating the past again. If I don't lock Sarah and Victor together, I won't be able to sleep a wink all night. Sarah acted faster and more intensely than I expected. She ran to the gate of Ethan Group, holding up banners while starting a live stream. Sarah, with tears streaming down her face, faced the camera. Victor and I have known and loved each other for over 20 years, yet the Ethan family is tearing us apart. Yes, I'm not from an aristocratic family, and the Ethan family looks down on me, but does an ordinary girl not deserve true love? For money, they'd sell out their own kin. The Ethan family is cold-blooded and heartless. Now they're forcing me apart from the love of my life, forcing me to leave the capital. They're trying to kill me, a wealthy second-generation heir from elite circles and an internet-famous starlet. In an instant, the live stream shot to the top of the trending chart. The comment section exploded. WTF, seriously? It's like a real-life Romeo and Juliet. Who can tell if it's true or not? Why hasn't the young master of the Victor family spoken up? This influencer might be extorting money. How dare the young master of the Victor family speak up? He must be scrambling to suppress the hot search. It doesn't work. Never underestimate my best friend. The matter escalated rapidly. The livestream shot straight to the top of the trending list. An ordinary girl and a wealthy second generation, like Cinderella and Prince Charming in a fairy tale. Oppression by power, societal norms and barriers, Cinderella standing up to fight for love, it was all too relatable. Netizens were flooded with comments, "This is so gripping. It's even more thrilling than reading a novel. Can someone explain who Sarah is? If it's true, I'll chip in for their wedding." The Ethan family was an old money dynasty with a scholarly heritage. For a moment, they were at a loss. They only issued a lengthy statement, "Miss Sarah's mother works for the Victor family. They are merely acquainted, with no personal relationship. Miss Sarah's statement is misleading. We request Miss Sarah to retract and clarify." As soon as the long statement dropped, and public opinion shifted slightly, both sides stuck to their own stories, and the key figure, Victor, did not respond. "I heard she's the nanny's daughter. Playing with feelings and then abandoning? No way. I thought true love was priceless. What true love exists these days anyway? What on earth is the Victor family's young master doing? Yeah, give us a result. I've been following this all day, waiting for the finale." I sneered. Seems Victor's love isn't so steadfast. He wants the Ethan family's benefits while pursuing true love. The internet was abuzz with heated debate. I watched it with great relish, waiting to see how Sarah plays her next move. Sarah didn't disappoint me. She posted her proof of pregnancy online. Tearfully, she pleaded, "Brother, look at our baby. I just want a home to belong. I truly don't care about money or status. I just want my baby to live. Is it too much to ask for? Brother, save me, save our baby. Are you really going to abandon me and our child?" Netizens were also aroused. Why hasn't Master Victor responded yet? Give us a result already. Is he really even a man? He is a coward. Victor is such a spineless coward. I have been laughing heartily and uncontrollably, leaving Sarah alone to perform her soliloquy here. I wonder how she'd keep it going. If it were me, just as I was thinking, the scene suddenly shifted. A piercing cry rang out, "Brother! If you don't want us, I won't live either." With that, Sarah turned around and ran. Netizens were stunned. What's this for? Is she going to jump from the building? How explosive is this? I kinda admire this woman. Young Master Victor, hurry over here. Hurry, hurry. Has anyone called the police yet? Sarah stood alone on the moonlit rooftop. She wore a white dress, her hair fluttering in the wind. Before the camera, there was an exquisite and peerless face, despairing. I don't regret meeting you in this lifetime. I only hope that in the next life, we can meet again. I hope in the next life, there will be no icy lineage or wealth standing in our way. I still love you. I rolled my eyes. This woman has been chattering on for over half an hour. If Victor doesn't show up soon, I'll fall asleep. Just then, Sarah, my Sarah. I'm late, but I'll never be separated from you again. At least he made an appearance. At least my afternoon tea wasn't for nothing. Victor gazed at Sarah with deep affection. The star-crossed lovers clung to each other and wept before the camera. Netizens cheered in unison, "May the destined lovers be united." The corner of my lips curved. "May you two be happily locked together forever." Ethan later told me. The old lady fainted on that same day. The internet was in an uproar, and even the Ethan family was dragged into the criticism. Still claiming there's no personal relationship. That's too much, using power to bully others. Exactly. They just look down on the girl's family background, what snobs. Never buying anything from the Ethan group again. After 3 days of PR efforts, the commotion gradually died down. I silently whispered sorry to myself. Ethan smiled and said, "Miss Eva, have you thought of an answer?" I felt momentarily embarrassed. The Ethan family suffered heavy losses this time, with a significant drop in stock price. My sense of guilt grew stronger. The Eva and Ethan families have been close for generations, and I've helped Miss Eva too. Surely I deserve at least a chance, don't I? I could only say, "But what about Grandma and Father?" A low chuckle came from the man. "Miss Eva, is that a yes?" I mean to say I didn't agree. Don't be pressured. Leave the rest to me, okay? I nodded without thinking. Good girl. Since you said yes, just wait for my news. Wait, when did I say okay? The Ethan family finally agreed to Victor and Sarah's relationship. It said Victor knelt by the old lady's bedside the entire night. The old lady stubbornly clenched her teeth and refused to relent. Sarah called out, "Grandma." The old lady slapped her down to the ground. Victor burst into tears, begging the old lady not to hurt Sarah. "Sarah is delicate, and she's carrying my child." The old lady almost fainted once more. In the end, Ethan persuaded the old lady. The old lady finally breathed a sigh of relief. "I'm getting too old to handle it anymore. I've wronged Eva and the Eva family itself. After so many years of intertwined interests, what should we do now?" Ethan smiled and said, "I've got your back." He moved pretty fast. Probably eager to quell the storm soon. Victor and Sarah hastily announced their grand wedding and live-streamed it online. Truly grand was the wedding. Sponsors flocked in a wave. High-end customized wedding dresses, a luxurious hall, every possible luxury was flaunted. But there were hardly any guests. They say some passers-by were invited as extras. Apart from a few elders of the Ethan family and Ethan himself, no other relatives or friends were present. On Sarah's side, her mother and brother came, dressed in ill-fitting, ignored by all. I am sure if the newlyweds were satisfied, but Ethan probably was. The wedding boosted Ethan Group's reputation and brought the group a hefty profit. Sarah was very smug. The day after the wedding, she pretended to run into me by chance. "Miss Eva, it's rare to see you. I've already sent someone to deliver the wedding invitation to you. Why didn't you come?" I smiled and said, "I happened to have something else to do, so it wasn't a good time." My fault, of course. After all, Victor was your fiancé. It's understandable if you were too sad to go. I also feel sorry for Miss Eva. Too bad my brother really does love me. I nodded, "You certainly owe me an apology." She was momentarily taken aback. I gave the maid a glance. The maid slapped her and spat, "What the hell is this?" Sarah immediately made a scene, "You dare hit me in public? I'll sue you." I casually walked past her, saying, "Go ahead." She glared at me hatefully, as if to rush over. The store manager grabbed her, "Don't cause trouble here in our store." Sarah was so angry she staggered back, "Let go of me." "Are you crazy? Open your eyes, they hit me." After leaving, the maid laughed and said to me, "This Miss Sarah is ridiculous. She actually made a scene in the Eva family store." I glanced at her and said, "You should call her Mrs. Victor from now on." Victor found out by the afternoon that I had hit someone in the morning. He wanted to cause trouble for me but was blocked out by the butler. "Mr. Victor, you're married now. It's not appropriate for you to visit the young lady. Please go back." Victor stormed off in anger. My best friend said, "Be careful. Victor's been in a bad mood lately. I'm afraid he might take it out on you. He's now the laughingstock of the circle. Which respectable family would take a servant's daughter as their main wife?" I raised an eyebrow in surprise. In this life, he got what he wanted, yet he's still dissatisfied. Truly, human greed knows no bounds. I was busy helping my father with company matters and soon forgot about Victor. My friend would come to keep me company from time to time. The old lady of the Ethan family felt guilty toward me and often sent me little gifts. Ethan seemed worried I might be upset and always found reasons to invite me to dinner. I really wanted to tell them that I felt relieved with Victor and Sarah together. But every time I mentioned it, my best friend would look at me with that pitiful expression. Never mind. Ethan came around rather frequently. My mother whispered to me, "I think the young master of the Ethan family behaves unusually toward you." What's unusual about it? Everywhere is unusual. I facepalmed helplessly. The Ethan family's young master just pities me. My mother looked at me with suspicion. I was so panicked that I ran away quickly. "I think Mrs. Eva might have noticed," Ethan said as he raised his gun and blew the head off a zombie. "What kind of betrothal gift should I prepare?" I was so flustered I nearly shot Ethan accidentally. He sighed and patted my head, still like a little child. A strange sensation stirred in my heart. Ethan said he wanted to propose marriage the next day. The next day, he came over with Grandma Ethan. My father was genuinely taken aback. He kept looking nervously back and forth between me and Ethan. My mother, however, couldn't help but secretly smile. Grandma Ethan said, "I truly adore this child. I've long regarded her as part of our family." My father looked hesitant. The incident with Victor had turned into rather an ugly scene. Ethan smiled. "I plan to restructure part of the Ethan group under my name with the Eva group, placing it under Miss Eva's name. Additionally, all my other assets will be co-owned with Miss Eva." At these words, everyone was stunned. So, Ethan intended to give me all his prenuptial assets? Everyone turned together to look at Grandma Ethan. The old lady nodded. "I have no objections." Everyone simultaneously turned to look at me. "I feel a bit shy." Ethan smiled and said, "I sincerely wish to marry Eva. Since it's sincere, there should be no doubts. These are just material things to show my sincerity." I didn't know what a mix of emotions I was feeling. No one I had ever trusted me so much before. He made no demands, held no hopes or expectations, and didn't even ask if I loved him. How could such a person possibly exist? My heart ached with a pang of sorrow. Ethan was even faster than I had expected. At the mid-year group meeting, he proposed the restructuring. The elders in the group fiercely opposed it, but they were all suppressed by Ethan and the old lady. Everyone was saying that Ethan had gone mad, chasing a girl and giving away all his wealth. To chase a girl, he's giving away his entire fortune. Isn't this both reckless and ridiculous? Ethan didn't care at all. "It's none of their business. It's my own stuff, and I can give it to whoever I like." I asked, "Aren't you afraid of misjudging others?" He smiled. "If I'm really wrong, then it's my fault for misreading people. I'm willing to pay the price for my mistake. What's more, I don't think I would misjudge you." I lowered my head, not daring to look into his eyes. My father sighed and said, "This Ethan really has determination." I was mentally prepared for the opposition from the old guard. However, I never expected that the most fierce opposition would come from Victor. He visited me several times. "Eva, why do you have to marry your uncle just to break my heart?" "Eva, I know you're saying this just to spite me." I was so furious that I laughed mirthlessly and immediately summoned the butler. "Call Mrs. Victor at once and tell her to keep her husband in check." Victor's face turned pale, and he slunk away shamefacedly. Victor has been avoiding Sarah like the plague recently. Rumor has it that Victor took a liking to a young starlet in the entertainment industry, and Sarah kicked up a fuss. My best friend said, "You don't know how fierce Mrs. Victor is. She took people to scratch the young actress's face and then went to Grandma Ethan's place to cry and make a scene. It suddenly dawned on me, no wonder she hasn't caused trouble for me lately. Grandma Ethan, out of consideration for Sarah's pregnancy, didn't do anything to her. But Sarah didn't bother to think. She forced the marriage before, and now she's making a scene in the old mansion. There was never any affection to begin with, and now she's only made the old lady despise her even more. I couldn't be bothered to pay attention anymore and started discussing the wedding with my best friend. I've been swamped recently. Not to mention the wedding, the asset restructuring is also quite challenging. Taking over so many things at once is likely to result in mistakes. Some people in the group are laughing at my misfortune. I remained calm and unfazed. After observing for some time, I came to understand why Ethan pushed for the restructuring. Though Victor carries the Victor name, he's always relied on the Ethan group. The Victor family's companies were previously managed with the assistance of Ethan's personnel. When Sarah married into the family, she thought she was the young mistress of a wealthy household. But she didn't expect to be under Ethan's control at every turn. So, she egged Victor on to stir up trouble with the Ethan family. "Victor, you're such a fool. Why are you letting others manage your company? The money is going into your uncle's pocket, and you're still defending them. Your little uncle is deliberately bullying us, he has ulterior motives. Your little uncle is about to marry your ex-fiancé. Once they become a couple, they'll crush you." At first, Victor didn't take it seriously. After hearing it too many times, his mind became stubborn. Without a second thought, he went to Ethan and declared that he was an adult now and wouldn't trouble his uncle with the company's affairs anymore. Ethan smiled and said nothing. He immediately separated out the Victor family's properties. The old lady couldn't bear it. "Victor, don't be foolish. Your uncle is helping you." Sarah was displeased. "Grandma, I can help brother Victor too." Furious, the old lady slapped her again. My best friend recounted it to me, and I was convulsed with laughter. Victor's mother passed away too early, and the old lady spoiled him excessively. Lacking discipline, he's like a willful child, acting on every whim. He thinks he can get whatever he wants by acting cute, never realizing that everything he has was given by the Ethan family. As long as the old lady is around, he can act spoiled. But if she's gone, who would take him seriously? The next time I saw Victor was at a business reception. Victor sat in a corner with a sullen face. No one around paid any attention to him. I glanced at him but didn't care. My business partner was discussing with me the introduction of an innovative car model. Halfway through, the business partner lowered his voice and said, "I heard Ethan split from the Ethan group?" I nodded. The partner hesitated, then after careful consideration, said, "I did want to keep working with Ethan, but this incident has caused too significant an impact, and we've suffered heavy losses. The Ethan family helped me before, and I'm grateful, but Ethan is difficult to work with. Please convey my apologies to the old lady for me." I said apologetically, "Oh, not at all." The matter he referred to was the recent press conference for the new type of car. Victor had made thorough preparations, spending tens of millions to book the venue and carefully preparing the PPT. But the translation team mistranslated the ad slogan, "The car is ready to hit the road," as "the car has hit a passerby." The entire audience burst into roaring laughter. Victor's company suffered serious damage to its international image. And this translation business was reportedly handled by Sarah's younger brother. My best friend doubled over with laughter. Victor's brother-in-law is quite the talent. I smiled without a word. As I passed by Victor, he suddenly grabbed my arm. "Eva, how have you been lately?" "Thank you, thanks to you, I've seen plenty of jokes." I didn't want to say more. But he wouldn't let me go. "Eva, I regret it. I shouldn't have broken your heart. Between us, Mrs. Victor, you're here," I shouted. Victor startled, he turned around and saw no one behind him. "You're lying to me, I was already gone." "Victor, I never lied to you. The one who truly deceived you is Sarah." Yes, I knew Sarah was deceiving him. Victor thought Sarah had attempted suicide for him, so she must love him desperately. But I overheard the conversation between Sarah and her mother. "Sarah, this is your only chance. Succeed, and you'll be a wealthy lady. Fail, and you'll be a dog at the bottom of society, never able to rise again. Do you want to be like Mom, a servant forever? You just pretend to jump. Do you really think Victor would let you die?" Actually, I had doubts in my previous life too. After Sarah jumped off the building, the police investigation revealed that besides her footprints, there were also those of another man. Her younger brother. Sarah's brother had a gambling problem, and every time he owed money, it was his sister who bailed him out. On the day Sarah died, could it be that her brother was there to ask for money again? I told Victor, but he wouldn't listen. He gritted his teeth and asked, "Why, even after Sarah's death, are you still defaming her? Your heart is so filthy that everything you see appears tainted." What could I say? This time, I said nothing, just watched as Sarah, her mother, and her younger brother drained Victor dry. Victor's company has been plagued with problems recently. First, a series of mistakes, missent emails, translation errors, damaged the company's image, causing partners who once cooperated out of respect for Ethan Group to terminate their cooperation one after another. Then came the product line. It was said that Victor's brother-in-law brought in a bunch of unsavory characters, spending all day fooling around with new hires. They even recklessly handed over the critical infant formula production line to an inexperienced newcomer. Recently, several babies ended up in intensive care after drinking the milk powder. The investigation has found there was a problem in the sterile production facility. The incident immediately caused an uproar once it broke out. Victor both compensated and handled PR. But given the seriousness of the incident, the brother-in-law still ended up in jail. Sarah went to find the old lady, crying uncontrollably, "Grandma, you're so heartless. You just watched as outsiders bullied us and didn't say a word. Victor is your own grandson." Grandma Ethan was exasperated at Victor's lack of progress, like iron that couldn't be forged into steel, but had no choice but to step in to help. However, after this incident, the old lady also made it clear that she would no longer interfere. The company's turmoil subsided, but Sarah's younger brother remained in prison. Optimized version. As a result, Sarah often went to seek out Ethan to pick fights. Ethan was also troubled. "This will drag down Ethan Group if it continues." I advised him, "Just take over Victor's company directly." He hesitated. "The old lady will be heartbroken. After all, he's the only child of my sister. Those whose virtue doesn't match their position will inevitably face calamities. The elderly lady will understand." There were some things I didn't elaborate on with Ethan. In my previous life, the old lady passed away peacefully after celebrating her 80th birthday. By my calculation, it will be next month. After Grandma Ethan's death, her will divided the Ethan family's property into two halves. One half went to her son, Ethan, and the other half to her grandson, Victor. Ethan never had any children, and as his health gradually deteriorated, the property eventually fell into Victor's hands. I always suspected Victor was behind this but had no evidence. Regardless, I had to find a way to drive Victor out of the Ethan Group. I started talking to my father and paying attention to Victor's moves. Before we could take action, Victor was hospitalized. It was said that he had a huge fight with Sarah, and during the scuffle, they hit their heads. After waking up, Victor didn't make a fuss and stayed calm. A few days later, I heard about Sarah's miscarriage. Sarah was hit by a car from nowhere while out, bleeding heavily on the spot, and was rushed to the hospital remaining unconscious. The 7-month-old baby boy could not be saved. I frowned, always feeling that something was amiss. The calmer Victor appeared, the more I felt that a storm was coming. After waking up, Sarah naturally cried and threw a tantrum. After Victor took her back, nothing else happened. The child is dead, and Victor didn't react? Yes, and what's even stranger is that when we went to visit Sarah, we were denied entry outside the door. Even Grandma couldn't get in. Even the elderly lady didn't get in. Before long, Sarah was admitted to a mental hospital. Victor stated publicly that Sarah became mentally unstable due to the overwhelming grief of losing her child. Looking at this familiar tactic, I couldn't help but wonder if Victor had been reborn too. Ethan grew wary. Victor's acting strange, stay away from him, I'm afraid he'd hurt you. I smiled and hugged him, then will you take me with you wherever I go? Ethan gazed at me deeply. I didn't expect that Victor would suddenly call me during such turbulent times. I'd like to have a word with you. There's really nothing to talk about. Even after all these 10 years of friendship, don't you have anything to say to me? I was momentarily startled. My suspicions grew stronger in my mind. After some thinking, I finally agreed. Let's meet at the tea house on Nanjing Road. Victor and I had met and got to know each other in our youth. There were some beautiful memories. The tea house on Nanjing Road was one of them. Every time we had a holiday, he would invite me, claiming it was for tea, but actually, it was just to see each other. When I arrived at the tea house, Victor was already waiting. One glance was enough to confirm he was back. Not merely the pampered rich young master Victor, but the merciless Victor a decade later. Eva, I miss you so much. Back then, I secretly took your school uniform to force you to skip class, threatening to throw it away if you didn't come. You were so angry your face flushed red. It's all in the past. I smiled, let's get to the point. Victor gave a bitter laugh, so you won't even say one more word? What else? Wait for you to send me to a mental hospital again? Victor looked dejected, I know you hate me. I failed you. Back then, when you told me Sarah was only after my money, I didn't believe you, not until I heard her plotting with her younger brother myself. I deeply regret it. I shouldn't have hurt our years of friendship over someone like that. I didn't want to hear about bygone days. I interrupted him, even if Sarah died because of our wedding, so what? I said coldly, you're the one who chose to continue. You wanted Sarah but couldn't relinquish your power and status. You wavered, and when disaster struck, you dared not take responsibility, so you pinned the blame on me. He sighed, when all is said and done, it's still because of Sarah. Eva, I owe you an apology, but I've made sure you were avenged. Avenge me? Yes, Sarah. Don't you want to see her suffer? I'll show you. Everything you endured, she'll endure too. I trembled all over, shooting him a look of disgust. Is this the love he keeps proclaiming? The love that sent Sarah to a mental hospital without a word? In previous incarnations he's blamed me, now he blames Sarah. How disgusting. For a moment, I actually felt some sympathy and gratitude towards Sarah for taking such trash out of my life. I said slowly, I'm not interested in what's between you and Sarah. What about Ethan's situation, then? I glared at him, what do you want? He smiled and said, Eva, you're so smart. How could you not know what I'm up to? But you've reacted too late. I've already got everything ready. What does that mean? What has he prepared? Is it related to the old lady? I looked up at him. He wore a triumphant expression. By the way, I wasn't reborn recently. I woke up when that bitch Sarah stole my money to pay her brother's gambling debts. I will make you return to me, Eva. I know you're waiting for tonight, right? I hope I didn't get the day wrong. My heart sank bit by bit. I immediately called Ethan. The Ethan group had already begun to fall into chaos. It's unclear how Victor managed to bribe the lawyers, reporters, and some old shareholders. A crowd was blocking the gate of the Ethan group. Ethan treats the Ethan group like a joke, suddenly announcing a restructuring without a word. Us old folks aren't lying in our graves yet. Exactly. I think it's the Eva group's doing, leading Ethan around by the nose, turning Ethan group's properties into Eva groups. We've worked hard all these years, if not with merit, at least with effort. Kicking us out is out of the question. I glanced around, all of them were people who had been flaunting their seniority and leeching off the Ethan group for years. The restructuring stripped them of their original positions. Victor had actually managed to rally so many people in such a short time. It's thanks to him for hiding it for so long. The reporters raised their microphones. Mr. Ethan, do you have anything to say? Did Grandma Ethan know about this? Is the restructuring of Ethan Group masking an asset transfer? Ethan looked a bit disheveled. I wanted to grab him, but someone shoved me, a femme fatale. That's right. If it weren't for her, how could we possibly have been fired? That little tramp from the Eva family sure knows how to seduce. She's got both the nephew and his uncle wrapped around her finger. Ethan's expression darkened as he pushed through the obstacles to help me up. Security. Help. I shook my head, stopping Ethan. It wasn't the right time yet. I knew Victor had bribed these people in hopes of provoking us. Don't provoke them. Let them talk for a moment. In no time, rumors about me spread like wildfire on the internet. It was said that I had been engaged to Victor, then seduced Ethan in order to seize his family's assets for myself. Under deliberate incitement, the crowd grew agitated. We want to see the old lady. Go see the old lady. That Eva family bitch, get out of the Ethan Group. Get out of Ethan Group. Ethan and I were completely backed into a corner. Victor walked in slowly with a Victor smile. Long time no see, little uncle. Grandmother always thought I was incompetent and needed your help, but look, I don't need you anymore. The lawyers are all ready. Once Grandma passes, the Ethan Group will be mine. Little uncle, you shouldn't have thrown everything away for a woman. If it weren't for your merger and restructuring, how could I have such a good opportunity? Too bad Grandma won't get to see it. Ethan's face remained impassive, devoid of expression. A trace of doubt flashed in Victor's eyes. Why were there so few people present? Why wasn't the commotion as big as he had expected? You wretched little creature. Just then, a loud voice rang out from behind. Who do you think won't be able to see it? Victor looked at the vibrant and energetic figure standing at the door in disbelief. Grandma. Actually, all of this was premeditated by Ethan and me, knowing Victor's self-righteousness, especially now that he's in power. Because I knew that Victor is the most self-righteous, believing everyone schemed for power as he did against his uncle. Especially the ruthless Victor, the current ascendant in power. In his eyes, everything boils down to profit, so blinded by greed that he didn't even bother to confirm Grandma's passing before declaring victory. What a fool. He once schemed against his uncle for power, so naturally, he assumed we would do the same to him, but I'm not like him. From the start, my goal wasn't to scramble for power but to expose this heartless and ungrateful grandson Grandma had doted on. So he had long since turned those dissenters against us, just waiting for Grandma to pass away before striking. Even after meeting with me, his confidence soared so much that he didn't even confirm whether Grandma had died before rushing to declare victory. When Ethan announced transferring the property to me, new partners flocked to us, believing one devoted to his wife would equally honor business commitments. How stupid. So many elderly people willingly walked into our trap. But I'm not him, after all. From the very beginning, my goal wasn't to fight for power, but to make my grandmother see this person for who he is. The grandson she loved her whole life turned out to be a heartless monster. Victor never cared about Grandma from the start. The remaining people began to describe to the police and reporters how Victor had threatened or lured them with money. He didn't even notice that we had changed Grandma's doctor and had prepared better medicine for her in advance. In fact, during the restructuring process, we discovered some people had been bribed. The most pitiful one was the old lady who was kept in the dark. There were still many loyal old employees and shareholders who believed in Ethan. Even when Ethan announced putting the business in my name, more new partners and collaborators chose to join us. A man who is loyal to his wife will surely be loyal to his partners too. So, many of the elderly people willingly joined us in setting up this scheme. That's also why, despite how intense it seemed, we didn't actually suffer much harm. The old lady's appearance quickly settled the matter. Soon, someone called the police. He came to beg Ethan, but Ethan refused to see him. A few troublemakers were arrested by the police. The remaining individuals began describing to the police and reporters how Victor had threatened or bribed them with money, and later, I heard he was severely beaten. The video of Victor and Sarah causing a scene at the wedding was also posted online, the old lady still couldn't bear it, and I found him in the hospital. The internet was flooded with criticism. The most pitiful one was the old lady, completely kept in the dark. She fell ill soon after returning. Autumn faded, winter arrived. Grandma's health kept fluctuating up and down. Victor wanted to see the old lady several times, but I refused to listen to his reminiscence. Grandma didn't see him. Victor is now completely excluded from the Ethan group. He was taken aback for a moment. Grandma didn't hold him accountable, but she never helped him again. Rumor has it his company is struggling, with substantial debts. Victor looked deeply troubled. He came to ask Ethan for help, but Ethan wouldn't see him. He came to me too, but I ignored him. I smiled. There's much you don't know, it was Sarah's brother who hit me in that accident. Later, I heard he was beaten up, pretty badly. Grandma's heart softened in the end. I found him in the hospital. Victor's pupils shrank. He was slumped on the bed, cursing, "That bitch Sarah killed me," I called out to him. He turned and saw me, his eyes lighting up. "Eva, you came to see me. You still have me in your heart." Why? Why didn't I quickly stepped back, avoiding him with a mix of fear and disgust. His face fell with disappointment. "You won't forgive me." Eva, my rebirth was a second chance, to realize how blind I've been all these years. I know I was wrong. I cut him off. "Do you remember the car accident in our 6th year of marriage?" He stiffened. "You don't? Fine. After my parents died, I lay alone in that hospital bed. When I called you, you were too busy flirting to let me finish, you just hung up." Victor's face twisted in agony. "I didn't know." "Oh, there's plenty you didn't know." "That crash? It was Sarah's brother who ran me over." His head jerked up. "Because I was digging into his sister's death. Sarah didn't jump for love, he pushed her." Victor's pupils contracted violently. "And during that accident?" "I was 4 months pregnant." The color drained from his face. Why didn't I tell you?" My laugh was razor sharp. "Because you're unworthy. You don't deserve that child, or me." "Still think you matter to me?" "Oh, I remember you, every time I wish you'd burn in hell." It has started snowing. The old lady's health has been getting weaker lately. Ethan is waiting for me outside. I went with him to see the old lady. I leaned against his back, silent. "When you're tired, take a nap." I gave a slight shake of my head. I like leaning like this. It's quiet. He sighed softly. "Mother doesn't have long left." I say, Ethan held my hand tightly. "Eva, sometimes I feel you carry a lot on your mind, as if it's crushing you, leaving you breathless." I stared blankly at him. "I don't know why, and I haven't asked you. But you could try trusting me. Life is long, and we can go and see different places." I nodded. Tears dropped onto my skirt. The old lady was delighted to see us. Because of what happened with Victor, Ethan and I postponed our wedding. When the old lady saw this, she naturally urged us to hurry up with the arrangements. "She's holding my hand, Eva, we must have been destined in a past life." My nose tingled with sadness. In that past life, the old lady was truly kind to me. When I got married, the old lady gave me many of her private assets. She said, "My daughter passed away early. These were her things. I'm giving them to you for your support." Sadly, I didn't use them in the end. Seeing us feeling down, Ethan joked, "Mother, when I get married, don't you have anything to give me?" The old lady smiled. "Nothing for you, you cheeky monkey. Grown up and still shameless. My private things are for Eva." "Mom, you're being partial." The old lady and he broke into laughter together. He looked at me. "Why call her old lady? Call her mother. You're making me sound old for no reason." My eyes turned red, and I called out, "Mother." "Ah." The old lady's eyes fill with gratification. "What a pity." I catch a flicker of sorrow in the old lady's eyes. Mother, are you worried about Victor? We'll check on him often. The old lady shook her head, let it be. Don't worry about him. Live your own lives well. When I go down there, I'll go and apologize to my daughter. I'm sorry I failed her. I didn't raise her son well, it made me sad to hear. Mother, you must get well and attend our wedding. The elderly woman nodded. We chatted with the old lady, discussing wedding details. After a while, she grows slightly confused. Xiangwan, hey. Mom? Is Xiangwan back? Yes, I held her hand tightly. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. On the way out, Ethan remained silent the whole time. Eva, do you know my sister's name, Sophia? Luna. If we have a daughter, let's name her Luna, okay? I squinted my eyes. The plum blossoms in the corner wafted a faint fragrance, and the sun was warm. I smiled. Okay,